I didn't yell. I didn't even call her name. The laptop was already open on the coffee table, the screen glowing in the dim light. One frame frozen in time. Emily, on our porch, standing far too close to someone who wasn't me, his hand on her back, her face lit up in a smile I hadn't seen in months. I sat there, motionless, staring at the paused video like it might burn a hole straight through me. Every second felt stretched, like the room itself was holding its breath. My heart wasn't racing anymore. It had done that hours ago when I first found the footage. Now I was steady, too steady, the kind of calm that only comes after you've already broken. I heard the sound of keys in the door. Emily's voice floated in, cheerful, unsuspecting. She had no idea what waited for her in this room, no idea that everything she thought was safe was seconds away from collapsing. The door swung open, and Emily walked in humming to herself. She kicked her shoes off, let her bag slide to the floor, and flashed me that easy smile, the one that used to feel like home. For a split second, if you didn't know what was waiting on the laptop, you'd think this was just another ordinary night. She stretched her arms, pulled her hoodie loose, and sighed. "God, I'm starving," she laughed, moving toward the kitchen. Her voice carried that familiar warmth, and it stung, because I knew what was frozen on that screen inches away from her. She finally noticed me, sitting too still, too quiet. "What's going on?" she asked, half curious, half teasing. Her eyes flicked toward the glow of the laptop, but she didn't yet see what it was. I said nothing. I just sat there. She took one careless step closer to the truth she couldn't escape. I didn't answer her. My silence must have felt strange because she tilted her head, eyebrows lifting in that playful way she used to charm me. "Michael?" she asked, still smiling. I turned the laptop toward her and pressed play. I thought I knew what I'd hear. I didn't. The room filled with the faint, grainy glow of our backyard camera. At first it looked harmless, two figures stepping into the porch light. Then the laughter hit, sharp and undeniable. His laugh, her laugh, together. Emily froze mid-step, her smile collapsing before my eyes. She bent slightly, like her knees had weakened, eyes locked on the screen. For a moment she tried to keep her face neutral, but I saw it, the panic rising in her throat, the way her fingers twitched as if she wanted to slam the laptop shut. I stayed perfectly still. The only sound was the recording, their voices, their whispers, repeating in my living room like a sentence being carried out. The camera angle widened, showing the backyard I had mowed 100 times, the porch where we drank coffee on Sunday mornings. Now it was a stage for something I was never meant to see. There they were, Emily and Jason, stumbling in from the side gate, laughing too hard, like the world belonged only to them. She brushed against his arm, leaned into him as if it was the most natural thing in the world. His hand found the small of her back, and she didn't move away. The porch light caught their faces perfectly. His grin wide, her smile brighter than it had been with me in months. They looked comfortable, familiar, like this wasn't the first time. My stomach tightened, but I stayed silent. Emily's breathing grew shallow beside me. I didn't look at her. I didn't need to. I just let the video run, the proof unfolding frame by frame, with no room left for excuses. I didn't need to look at her to know. I could feel the shift in the air, the way her body locked up beside me. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her knees bend slightly, like the strength had drained right out of them. She sank slowly onto the couch, hands hovering uselessly in her lap, eyes glued to the screen. Her smile gone. In its place, a hollow expression, as if she'd been caught in a nightmare she couldn't wake from. She tried for a second to keep her face blank, but the panic betrayed her, crawling up her neck in a red flush. I stayed standing. My silence pressed down heavier than any words could. The laughter from the video spilled into the room, cruel, undeniable, making the present moment unbearable. Emily whispered something, too soft to catch. Her lips trembled, but whatever excuse she was reaching for died before it left her mouth. My chest ached, but not the way it had at 3 a.m. when I first found the footage. Back then, the shock had hit me like a hammer, heart racing, stomach twisting until I thought I'd throw up. Tonight, it was different. Tonight, The pain had settled into something colder, heavier, like a stone lodged in my chest, crushing every breath. I watched her on the screen, laughing, leaning into him, and every second tore another piece off the man I thought I was, the husband who trusted, the fool who believed. Each sound from the speakers stabbed deeper, her giggle, his whisper, their voices tangled together in a way that used to be ours. I didn't yell. I didn't ask her why. I just stood there, letting the betrayal loop through me, again and again, until there was nothing left but the dull, unbearable certainty. The woman I loved had chosen someone else. The footage shifted, the grainy angle jumping as they moved inside. My kitchen. The place where Emily and I cooked Sunday breakfasts, where we argued over groceries, where we kissed goodnight under dim light. Now, I was watching it turned into something unrecognizable. Jason leaned against the counter, close, too close, and Emily stood in front of him, smiling like she belonged there. She reached for a bottle on the counter, clumsy with laughter, nearly knocking it over. He steadied her with one hand, his face inches from hers. I felt my stomach twist, but I didn't move. My hands stayed steady, my body frozen in place. Emily beside me shifted in her seat, whispering, "Please, Michael, can we stop this?" Her voice was fragile, almost breaking. I didn't answer. The recording kept playing, filling the room with laughter that didn't belong to us anymore. "Michael, please," Emily whispered, her hands clutched together in her lap. Her eyes darted between me and the screen, wide and desperate. "I get it. I know what it looks like. Just, please, turn it off." I didn't move. The footage kept rolling, their voices spilling into the living room like poison. Jason's low laugh, her lighter one layered over it. It was unbearable, and yet I forced myself to stand there. She reached toward the laptop as if to close it herself, but stopped short, her fingers trembling inches from the keyboard. She didn't dare touch it, not with me standing there. "I can't watch this," she said, shaking her head, tears brimming. Her voice cracked on the last word. I stayed silent, my eyes locked on the screen. Let her feel every second, I thought. Let her live in the same hell I had when I first saw it, alone at 3 a.m. The clip ended, the screen fading to black for half a second before restarting. I had set it to loop. This time, the silence would do the talking. The laughter came back instantly, echoing through the room like a cruel reminder. Emily flinched at the sound of her own voice, covering her face with both hands. "No, no, please, not again," she whispered through shaking fingers. But the video didn't care. It repeated, frame by frame, every smile, every touch, every stolen whisper. She turned toward me, her eyes red, searching for mercy, but I gave her none. My silence was deliberate, heavier than shouting, heavier than rage. I wanted her to feel the weight of it, the way it had crushed me when I watched alone. Each replay stripped away her defenses until all that was left was raw panic and shame, and still, I didn't reach for the laptop. I let it play. Again and again. I let the video play one last time before snapping the laptop shut. The sound cut off, leaving the room hollow and tense. Emily reached out, almost begging, but I stepped back. That was the first moment she looked afraid, not of me, but of the finality in my face. I grabbed my keys from the counter without a word. Leaving wasn't revenge, it was the only way to breathe. Her voice cracked behind me, calling my name, but I didn't turn around. I wanted her to sit in that silence, to sit with the image of herself burned into her memory. The cold air hit me as I stepped outside. My chest tightened, but at the same time I could finally breathe. I slid behind the wheel and started the engine. The headlights cut through the dark street and I pulled away, leaving the house and her behind. No destination. Just miles of empty road waiting to swallow the anger I couldn't escape. The highway was a tunnel of black and sodium light. I drove because sitting still hurt worse. Her laugh kept bleeding through the engine's hum, a loop I couldn't mute. Every mile only stretched the silence thinner, until it felt like skin about to tear. After what felt like hours, I spotted the glowing neon sign of an all-night diner off the highway. The parking lot was nearly empty, just a couple of trucks lined up at the far end. I pulled in and cut the engine, but I didn't go inside. The sudden silence was deafening. No engine, no road noise, just the faint buzz of the neon sign flickering above the diner door. I sat there gripping the steering wheel, staring at my own reflection in the windshield. My face looked older, harder, like I'd aged years in a single night. The man looking back at me wasn't the husband who kissed his wife goodbye in the mornings. He was the last one to know, the fool left holding pieces of a marriage that wasn't real anymore. I leaned back in the seat, the smell of old coffee drifting faintly from inside the diner. But I wasn't hungry. I was hollow. The windshield stared back at me, turning the dark interior of my car into a mirror. For a long time, I just looked at myself. Jaw tight, eyes hollow, shoulders slumped like I was carrying a weight I couldn't set down. That reflection didn't look like a husband. It didn't even look like me. It looked like a stranger who had been left out of his own story. Emily had known the truth. Jason had known. Maybe even the friends who saw her texting late at night, laughing at something she didn't share. Everyone else was in on the secret, whether they meant to be or not. And me? I was the last to know. The fool sitting in a dark car at 2 a.m, staring at himself and wondering when exactly his life had stopped being his. I touched the glass, half expecting the man on the other side to answer. He didn't. I pulled my phone from the cup holder, my thumb hovering over the screen like I was about to do something dangerous. The security app was still open, the footage queued up. Part of me wanted to throw the phone out the window, smash it on the asphalt, anything to make the images disappear. But instead, I pressed play. There it was again. Our porch, the glow of the light, her laughter. Only now it was worse, because I was watching it by choice. I swiped, switched camera angles. One caught them from the side gate, another from the kitchen. Different angles of the same betrayal, like I was a director reviewing a film I never wanted to shoot. Every rewind was a knife. Every replay carved the same wound deeper. My chest tightened, my stomach turned, but I couldn't stop. I needed to see it all, every detail, as if knowing the whole picture could somehow make sense of the wreckage. Hours passed, though I couldn't have said how many. The road blurred, the diner faded in my rear view, and still the images clung to me like shadows I couldn't shake. Her laugh, his hand, the porch light catching them too perfectly, over and over until the sound felt carved into my bones. I drove through towns I didn't know, past gas stations glowing under fluorescent lights, past empty intersections where the red light changed for no one. The world moved on like nothing had happened, while I sat trapped in the same moment on a loop. By the time the horizon began to pale, I felt hollowed out. The anger had burned away, the grief had wrung me dry. What was left wasn't peace. It was exhaustion, a kind of numb clarity that scared me more than rage ever could. The night hadn't ended. It had simply drained me until there was nothing left but silence inside. By the time I finally pulled into the driveway, the sun was already high. The house looked the same from the outside, quiet, ordinary, like nothing had happened. But my chest tightened as I stepped out of the car. Nothing inside those walls would ever be ordinary again. I unlocked the door and pushed it open. The living room was dim, curtains half drawn, and there she was. Emily sat curled on the couch, still in the same clothes from the night before. Her face was pale, her eyes swollen and red, like she hadn't slept a single minute. She sat up quickly when she saw me, almost startled, almost relieved. "Michael," her voice cracked, thin and unsteady. I didn't answer. I dropped my bag by the door, scanning the room that suddenly felt smaller, heavier. She looked at me like she was waiting for a verdict, but I wasn't ready to give her one. Not yet. For a long moment, the only sound in the room was the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. Emily shifted on the couch, her arms wrapped tightly around herself as if she could hold her body together. I stood there watching her, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. Finally, the words slipped out, low and flat. "How long?" Her eyes widened, as if she hadn't expected me to speak at all. She opened her mouth, closed it again, then looked down at her hands twisting nervously in her lap. It was a mistake," she stammered. "It only happened once. It doesn't mean anything." I let out a bitter laugh, short and sharp, startling even myself. The sound seemed to echo in the room. "Once?" I said, my voice edged with disbelief. "That's your answer?" She flinched. and that tiny movement told me more than her words ever could. "It was only one time," Emily said quickly, almost rehearsed, like if she said it fast enough I might believe her. Her eyes darted up to mine, then away just as fast, as though she couldn't bear the weight of my stare. "It didn't mean anything," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I swear, Michael, it was a mistake and I hate myself for it." I laughed again, a sharp, bitter sound that cut through the room. "One time?" My tone made her flinch. "You said his name on the porch like you've said it before." She froze, her lips parting, no words coming out. That split second of hesitation, that flicker in her eyes, it told me more than any confession could. "One time doesn't look like familiarity," I said, pacing now, the walls closing in. "One time doesn't explain the late nights, the secrets, the way you've been somewhere else for months." Her words, just once, echoed in my head. But the more I replayed our past months, the more cracks appeared. The details screamed louder than her excuses. I remembered the sudden interest in her phone, how she carried it everywhere, even into the bathroom, always face down on the counter. I remembered the night she came home late, smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't mine, and the way she smiled to herself, a secret flicker, when she thought I wasn't looking. "One time?" I repeated, shaking my head. "Then why did you save his number under a fake name? Why did you start working late 3 nights a week? Why did you stop looking at me like I was in the room?" Emily's face crumpled. She pressed her lips together, as if holding back the truth could somehow protect her. But it was already too late. I had seen enough. I had connected the dots she thought I'd never notice. Emily's eyes welled, and her voice rose, desperate, reaching for something, anything, that might soften the truth. "I was lonely, Michael," she said, almost a shout but breaking in the middle. "You've been so busy, always working late, always tired when you came home. I felt invisible, like we were just roommates sharing the same house." Her words hung in the air, heavy, dangerous. I stared at her, stunned at the audacity. "So what?" I said, my voice low but sharp. "That gives you permission to find someone else? To let another man put his hands on you in our kitchen?" She shook her head, tears spilling down her face. "I didn't plan it. It just happened. I needed to feel wanted again. I needed to feel seen." I clenched my fists, the anger bubbling hot again. She wanted me to carry the blame. She wanted my absence to excuse her betrayal. "Don't," I snapped, louder than I meant to. My voice cut through the room, and Emily flinched like I'd struck her. "Don't you dare put this on me." I stepped closer, my hands shaking now, not from fear, but from fury I could barely hold in. Yes, I worked late. Yes, I was tired. But I did it for us, for this house, for the life we built together. You don't get to take my effort and twist it into your excuse. Her tears came harder, streaming down her face as she shook her head. "I'm not trying to—" "You are," I cut her off, my tone like steel. "You're trying to rewrite this story so you're the victim. But you're not, Emily. Not this time." She wrapped her arms around herself, shrinking under the weight of my words. And for the first time I saw it. She wasn't just ashamed. She was scared. Emily's voice broke as she stepped toward me, her arms outstretched like she could close the distance with a touch. "Michael, please," she whispered. "I still love you. I don't want to lose you." The words hung in the air, fragile, desperate. Her face was streaked with tears, her hands trembling as if reaching for something already gone. I stared at her, trying to feel something, anything, that might make those words mean what they used to. But all I felt was the weight of the video still echoing in my head, her laugh with him, her smile that wasn't mine anymore. "You love me?" I asked, my voice flat, almost hollow. "Then how did you give that smile to someone else?" She gasped, covering her mouth as if the truth had just landed heavier than she expected. "It was a mistake," she said again, her voice almost lost. "But my love for you is real." I walked over to the coffee table and picked up the laptop. Emily's eyes followed me, wide and confused, her tears still wet on her face. She must have thought I was about to close it, maybe even comfort her. But that wasn't what I had in mind. With a few clicks, the footage pulled up again. The porch, the kitchen, her smile that wasn't mine. My chest tightened, but my hands stayed steady. I navigated to the cloud storage, hovered over the files, and hit delete. Emily gasped, covering her mouth. You're forgiving me? She asked, her voice trembling, hope flickering like a candle about to go out. I turned to her, my eyes cold. No, I'm not erasing this for you. I'm erasing it for me. I don't need to watch it again. Once was enough. Her shoulders collapsed, the hope draining from her face. She finally understood. This wasn't mercy. It was survival. I closed the laptop with a snap, the sound echoing through the quiet room. Emily stood frozen, her lips parted as if she wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. Her eyes searched mine for something. Anger, forgiveness, anything to hold on to. But I gave her nothing. Without speaking, I went to the bedroom and pulled a bag from the closet. I shoved in clothes, toiletries, whatever I could grab without looking at her. I could feel her presence in the doorway, small and trembling, but I refused to meet her eyes. "Michael," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Please, don't leave me like this." I zipped the bag, slung it over my shoulder, and walked past her. Her hand twitched like she wanted to reach out, to stop me, but she didn't. She just stood there, tears streaming. I opened the front door, stepped into the cold night, and let it close behind me, leaving her in the silence she had created. I didn't go far, just across town to my friend Daniel's apartment. He opened the door in sweatpants, rubbing sleep from his eyes, but one look at me and he didn't ask questions. He just stepped aside and let me in. The place was small, 2 bedrooms, a couch that had seen better days, but to me it felt like a lifeboat. I dropped my bag on the floor and sat down heavily, the cushions sinking under my weight. Daniel hovered nearby, cautious. "You okay?" he asked quietly. I shook my head, unable to form words. The truth was too heavy to spill, too raw to share. He didn't push. He just handed me a blanket, muttered something about the coffee being fresh in the morning, and left me alone. I lay there staring at the ceiling, the city sounds muffled through the window. For the first time in years, I wasn't in my own bed, and I wasn't sure I'd ever go back. I hadn't even closed my eyes when my phone lit up on the coffee table. One vibration, then another, then a call. Emily. I turned the screen face down, but it didn't matter. The buzzing kept coming in waves, calls, voicemails, text after text. Each chime cut through the silence of the apartment like a blade. I tried to ignore it, pulling the blanket over my head, but the glow from the screen burned through the fabric, relentless. Missed calls stacked one on top of the other. Notifications filled the screen until it looked like a wall of her name. Daniel peeked out of his room once, his face concerned. "You gonna answer that?" he asked softly. I shook my head. The phone buzzed again, and again. No matter how far I'd run, her voice was still chasing me, clawing at the edges of the night. By the second day, I stopped fighting it. Curiosity, anger, whatever it was, made me pick up the phone and scroll. Her messages were long, frantic paragraphs broken by short, pleading lines. "I can't eat. I can't sleep. Please answer me. You're all I have. Don't shut me out. I'm sorry. I'll do anything to fix this." In between the apologies, there were voice notes, her breathing ragged, her words tumbling out in gasps. "Michael, please, I made a mistake. I hate myself. Just let me explain. Just tell me you're coming home." I sat on the couch, the screen glowing in my hands, my chest tightening with every word. She wanted me to believe her regret was enough, but all I could see was her face on that video, smiling in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. Her guilt didn't erase the images. If anything, it made them sharper. I kept scrolling, message after message, her words stacking on top of each other like bricks in a wall. She begged, she confessed, she promised. The tone shifted with every hour, sometimes frantic, sometimes soft, sometimes almost angry at herself. I read them all, every word, but my thumbs never moved to type a response. I couldn't give her that. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The silence between us was my only weapon, and I held it tight. I wanted her to feel what I had felt, that crushing loneliness of sitting in the dark with nothing but the sound of betrayal looping in your ears. At night, my phone lit up on the table, buzzing against the wood, and I just lay there staring at the ceiling. Daniel asked once if I was going to answer her. I shook my head. Sometimes the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. On the 4th day, the buzzing stopped. No calls, no texts, just silence. For a moment, I thought maybe she'd finally given up. Maybe she'd realized I wasn't ready, that I needed distance. Then came the knock on the door. Some truths don't text first. Daniel glanced at me from the kitchen, brows furrowed. We weren't expecting anyone. The knock came again, softer this time, almost hesitant. My stomach sank before I even moved. When I opened the door, there she was. Emily. Her hair unwashed, her hoodie the same one she'd worn that night. Her eyes were swollen, ringed with dark shadows like she hadn't slept since I left. She didn't try to push past me. She just stood on the doorstep, arms wrapped around herself, looking small in a way I'd never seen before. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Just hear me out." My hand lingered on the frame, gripping it so hard my knuckles ached. Part of me wanted to slam the door, lock it, and let the silence speak for me. But I didn't. I couldn't. Emily stood there, eyes shining with unshed tears, breathing shallow like she was afraid even the air might give way. She looked so small, so wrecked, that the anger in me cracked just enough to let something else slip through. Pity, maybe, or exhaustion. Slowly I stepped back and pulled the door wider. Her shoulders dropped, a shaky breath escaping her lips as she crossed the threshold. She didn't move far, just a few hesitant steps into the living room. Her eyes darted around, landing on the couch where I'd been sleeping, the blanket still rumpled. Daniel disappeared into the kitchen, giving us space, and suddenly it was just the two of us again. Two people standing in the wreckage of what used to be a marriage. Emily lowered herself onto the edge of the couch like it might collapse beneath her. She perched there stiff and trembling, her knees pressed together, her fingers knotting in the sleeves of her hoodie. She couldn't keep still. Her leg bounced once, then stilled, then started again. I stayed standing, arms crossed, watching her from a distance. I wasn't ready to sit beside her, not yet. The gap between us felt like miles, and maybe it was. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. No words came out, just a shaky exhale that seemed to deflate her chest. Finally, her eyes lifted to mine, red and swollen. "I ended it," she whispered. The words cracked on her tongue. "With him. It's over." Ending it is not the same as undoing it. She said it like it was supposed to fix something, like cutting the cord now could erase everything I'd already seen. But her voice trembled, and even she didn't sound convinced. Emily's hands twisted in her lap as she forced the words out again, louder this time, like she needed me to believe them. "I told him it's over. I told him never to contact me again." Her voice cracked halfway through, but she pushed on. "I blocked his number. I deleted everything. I swear, Michael, it's finished." She leaned forward, desperate, searching my face for some sign of relief, some flicker that her effort mattered. But I gave her nothing. I stayed rooted to the floor, arms crossed, the weight of her words falling flat against me. "It was a mistake," she added quickly, her eyes wet. "A terrible mistake. I know I ruined everything, but it's done now. He's out of my life." I studied her, the tremor in her hands, the uneven rhythm of her breath. Maybe she thought ending it would make the betrayal easier to swallow. But to me, it was just too late. Emily wiped at her eyes with the sleeve of her hoodie, her voice trembling as she tried to form sentences. "I didn't plan it, Michael. I swear I didn't wake up one day and decide to betray you." She shook her head, the words spilling fast, uneven. "I felt invisible," she said, clutching her chest as if the word itself hurt. "We stopped talking, stopped laughing. You were always buried in work, and I told myself it was fine, that it was just a phase. But then Jason was there. He noticed me. He made me feel like I mattered." She looked down at her hands, twisting them together, ashamed. It wasn't love. It wasn't even real. It was weakness. Mine. And the second it happened, I knew I had destroyed everything that was real. Her voice broke on that last word, and the room fell heavy again. She wanted me to believe the affair was about loneliness, not love. I let her words wash over me, but they didn't sink in. Every sentence sounded like noise, like the hum of traffic outside a window you can't quite shut. Maybe once those words, lonely, invisible, wanted, would have meant something. But now they just felt like excuses dressed up as grief. I stared at her, this woman I had built a life with, and all I felt was nothing. No spark of anger, no flicker of hope, just a hollow space where trust used to live. I wanted to feel something, anything, rage, pity, love, but it was like the well had run dry. Her tears couldn't reach me anymore. Her explanations couldn't touch what she had broken. She searched my face for a reaction, but I gave her none, because the truth was, there was nothing left inside me to give. Only silence, only the emptiness she had carved into me. Emily's body shook as the words tumbled out of her. She buried her face in her hands, her shoulders rising and falling with every sob. The sound filled the room, raw and jagged, cutting through the silence I had built around myself. "Please, Michael," she cried, her voice cracking. "Don't let this be the end. I'll do anything. Counseling, therapy, whatever it takes. Just don't walk away from us." She dropped to her knees in front of me, clutching at my hands, but I pulled them back, refusing to let her touch soften me. "I swear I'll change," she whispered, desperate, her tears wetting the floor between us. "I'll prove it to you. I'll spend the rest of my life proving it. Just give me a chance." Her words spilled like a flood, drowning the air around us. But all I felt was the weight of the silence I refused to break. I finally spoke, my voice calm but sharp enough to cut. "You broke something in me, Emily." She froze mid-sob, her red, swollen eyes snapping up to mine. I didn't raise my voice, but every word carried more weight than shouting ever could. "It wasn't just a mistake," I continued. "It wasn't just one night. It was every smile you gave him that you stopped giving me, every excuse, every time I trusted you when I shouldn't have had to doubt." I took a slow breath, the kind you take when you're trying to steady a shaking hand. "And now, whatever we had, whatever made me believe we were untouchable, it's gone. You can apologize until your throat is raw, but it doesn't change the fact that you shattered something I don't know how to put back together." Her lips trembled, no words coming out, only tears. And for once, she didn't try to deny it. Emily's chest heaved as she wiped at her face, her hands trembling so badly she could barely steady herself. "Then let me fix it," she whispered, her voice hoarse from crying. "Please, Michael. I know I broke you. I know I destroyed what we had, but I'll spend the rest of my life putting it back together." She leaned forward, her knees pressed against the floor, her eyes locked on mine with a kind of raw desperation I'd never seen before. "Don't shut me out. Don't end us here. Give me a chance to fight for you, for us. I'll do the therapy, the counseling, whatever you want. Just tell me what to do, and I'll do it." Her hands hovered in the air like she wanted to reach for me but didn't dare. For once, there were no excuses on her lips, no blame, only surrender, only the plea of a woman terrified of losing everything. I didn't move. I didn't speak. Her words hung between us like smoke, heavy and suffocating, waiting for me to clear the air. But I couldn't. Not yet. Emily's eyes searched mine, desperate for a nod, a whisper, anything she could cling to. All I gave her was silence. My arms stayed crossed, my jaw locked, my face unreadable. The seconds stretched, unbearable. She broke first, her voice trembling as she whispered, "Say something. Please, Michael. Anything." I shook my head slowly. "I don't have an answer for you." Sometimes not choosing is the cruelest choice. My tone was flat, stripped of anger, stripped of pity, just empty truth. Her face crumpled, the last flicker of hope dimming in her eyes. She wanted certainty, forgiveness or finality, anything but this. But all I could give her was the same thing I had been living with since that night: uncertainty, silence, and a wound that had no words. That night, I lay on Daniel's couch, staring at the ceiling, the city lights bleeding faintly through the blinds. My body was exhausted, but my mind refused to shut down. Every time I closed my eyes, the images returned: the porch light, her laugh, his hand on her back. They looped endlessly, cruel and vivid, like the video was burned into the inside of my eyelids. I turned over, pulling the blanket tighter, but there was no escaping it. Even in silence, I could still hear her voice, soft and secret, meant for someone who wasn't me. More than the betrayal itself, it was the trust I mourned, the trust I thought was unshakable, the foundation of everything we had built. That was gone now, shattered in a way that no apology could rebuild overnight. Sleep never came. Only the weight of absence, the ache of knowing the woman beside me for years, was suddenly a stranger. A full week passed before I let myself drive back to the house. I wasn't going home. I was going back to the scene. 7 nights on Daniel's couch, 7 mornings staring at my phone, circling the same questions over and over until they blurred together. Was there anything left to save, or was I just delaying the inevitable? When I finally pulled into the driveway, the sight of her car made my chest tighten. The house looked quiet, lifeless. My hands gripped the steering wheel longer than they needed to, like I could hold off time by refusing to move. Eventually, I forced myself out of the car. The key felt heavier than it used to as I slid it into the lock and pushed the door open. The air inside was still. On the couch, under a blanket, Emily was curled up, fast asleep. An empty mug of tea sat on the table beside her. Even in sleep, she looked wrecked, like the week had torn her apart as much as it had me. Emily stirred when the door clicked shut behind me. She blinked up, disoriented, then sat up fast, brushing hair out of her face. The blanket slipped from her shoulders. "You came back," she whispered, almost afraid the words would scare me off again. I didn't answer. I set my bag down by the door and kept my distance. She rushed to fill the silence. "I've been to therapy," she said quickly, her words tumbling over each other. 2 sessions already. I know that doesn't erase anything, but I need you to know I'm trying. I'm not just saying I'll change, I'm doing it." She leaned forward, eyes searching mine for the smallest flicker of hope. "The counselor said it's going to take time, that I have to rebuild trust one step at a time. I'll do it, Michael. Every step. I'll do whatever it takes." Her voice trembled, but for the first time I believed she meant it. Emily reached over to the coffee table, her hands trembling as she picked up a folded piece of paper. She held it out to me like it weighed more than she could carry. "I wrote this," she said softly. "I couldn't get the words out when you were gone. So, I wrote them down." I hesitated, staring at the letter in her hands. For years we had shared everything face to face. The fact that she had to turn to paper felt like proof of the distance between us. Still, I took it. The paper was creased, the handwriting shaky on the outside where she had scrawled my name. She watched me with wide, unblinking eyes, her chest rising and falling like she was bracing for impact. I didn't open it yet. Instead, I set it on the table beside me. Her shoulders slumped, but she said nothing. The silence between us was louder than any confession. After a long silence, I picked up the folded paper and opened it. The handwriting inside was uneven, shaky, like every word had cost her something. I read slowly, my eyes tracing each line. "I betrayed you. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I hate myself for what I did, and I hate that I hurt the one person who ever truly loved me. I can't take it back, but I can promise I will spend every day proving I am not that woman anymore." The words blurred as my chest tightened, but I kept going. I felt lost, invisible, but that is no excuse. I chose wrong. I chose weakness. And I know I broke something in you that may never heal. Still, I will fight for you, even if you never look at me the same again. Promises don't glue porcelain. Work does. When I reached the end, my hands shook. The letter was honest, brutal, without excuses, and it hurt more because of it. I set the letter down slowly, rubbing my face with both hands. My chest ached, not with rage this time, but with something heavier, grief. The words were raw, stripped of excuses, but they didn't erase what I'd seen. They didn't erase the sound of her laughter in another man's arms. I looked at Emily across the room, her eyes swollen, her body folded in on itself like she was bracing for a blow. And then, without warning, memories cut through me. The nights we danced barefoot in the kitchen, the way she held my hand at my father's funeral, the sound of her laugh when it belonged only to me. Past and present collided so violently it made me dizzy. She was both women at once, the one who built a life with me, and the one who tore it apart. I didn't know which version I was looking at now, and that uncertainty was its own kind of torture. I closed my eyes, hoping for silence, but my mind betrayed me. One moment, I saw Emily barefoot in the kitchen, swaying to a song only we could hear, her laughter soft against my chest. The next, that same kitchen flashed in my head, the grainy footage of her pressed against the counter, smiling at him, not me. I remembered her hand clutching mine at my father's funeral, holding me up when I thought I'd fall apart. But almost instantly I heard her voice again, in whispers not meant for me, spilling out of those cheap security speakers. The contrast was unbearable, every beautiful memory twisted by the shadow of what I had seen. The woman who once felt like home was also the stranger who had betrayed me in my own house. Past and present overlapped until I couldn't tell them apart. Love and betrayal, tangled together, making it impossible to remember one without the other. The silence stretched until Emily finally broke it, her voice quiet, almost tentative. "You can sleep in our bed," she said, her fingers twisting in the hem of her hoodie. "I'll stay down here on the sofa." For a moment I just stared at her, unsure if I'd heard her right. She nodded quickly, her eyes fixed on the floor. "You shouldn't have to sleep on a couch. Not after everything. I don't deserve the comfort. I'll take this." She tugged the blanket tighter around herself, shrinking into the corner of the sofa like she wanted to disappear into it. The gesture was small, but it carried the weight of everything she'd broken, a quiet admission that she no longer had the right to claim the same space beside me. I almost said no, almost told her I'd take the couch instead. But the exhaustion pressed down on me, and I finally nodded, wordless, and headed upstairs. Sunlight crept through the blinds when I finally dragged myself out of bed. My body felt heavy, like I hadn't slept at all. The house was quiet, except for the faint clatter of dishes downstairs. I walked into the kitchen and found Emily at the counter. Her back was to me, shoulders stiff, as if every movement took effort. She turned when she heard my steps, a mug in her hands that trembled just enough for the coffee inside to ripple. "Morning," she whispered, her voice soft, careful, like she was testing a fragile bridge between us. She set the mug down in front of me, her fingers lingering on the handle before pulling away. I sat at the table, staring at the steam rising from the cup. She stood across the room, arms wrapped around herself, waiting, terrified to read too much into the fact that I hadn't left again. For the first time, I took a sip. I let the warmth of the coffee settle in my chest before setting the mug back on the table. Emily hovered by the counter, her hands gripping the edge as though it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her eyes flicked to me, wide, searching. I finally broke the silence. "I'm not leaving," I said, my voice low but steady. She froze, a breath catching in her throat. For a split second, hope flickered across her face. But before she could speak, I continued. "Don't thank me," I added. "This isn't forgiveness. This is only a chance. Nothing more." Her lips parted, tears welling again, but she nodded quickly, almost desperately. "I'll take it," she whispered. "Whatever chance you give me, I'll take it." I leaned back in my chair, feeling the weight of the words settle between us. A chance. That was all I had left to give. Emily pressed her hands together, nodding over and over like she needed to convince herself as much as me. "I know," she whispered, her voice barely holding steady. "I know this isn't forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. But if there's even the smallest chance, I'll hold on to it." Her tears slipped down silently this time. No sobs, no pleading, just quiet acceptance. She wasn't fighting my words anymore. She was surrendering to them. "I'll take the pain, the distance, the anger," she said, lifting her eyes to mine. "Even if you can't look at me the same way for years, I'll stay, because I'd rather fight for something broken than live without you at all." I studied her face, pale and worn, yet carrying a determination I hadn't seen before. Maybe she finally understood. This wasn't a victory. It was the faintest thread of hope, one sharp tug away from snapping. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the same place we had shared countless meals, but this time the air was heavier, stripped of routine. For the first time since everything shattered, we spoke without masks. I told her about the nights I had lain awake, staring at the ceiling while she was working late. How I replayed her laugh in my head, wondering why it sounded different. I told her how it felt to see that video at 3 a.m, alone in the dark, my heart pounding so loud I thought the neighbors might hear. She didn't interrupt. She didn't defend herself. Tears ran silently down her face as she nodded, each word cutting deeper than the last. When I finished, she whispered, "I deserve all of that. Every word. I know what I broke in you." For once, it wasn't excuses. It was truth, and that made it hurt even more. I leaned forward, my elbows on the table, my hands gripping each other so tightly they ached. The words poured out before I could stop them. "Do you know what it felt like?" My voice cracked, then hardened. To sit there, alone at 3 a.m, watching my wife laugh with another man. To hear you whisper things I was never meant to hear. It wasn't just pain, Emily. It was humiliation. It was knowing the woman I trusted most made me look like a fool in my own home. I shook my head, my chest burning. Every smile you gave him was one you stole from me. Every late night wasn't just betrayal. It was a performance I never auditioned for. And I was the last to know. Everyone else lived in my marriage except me. My voice dropped, low and heavy. That's what you broke. Not just love, my dignity, my trust, my sense of being enough. When I finally ran out of words, the silence between us was thick, unsteady. Emily sat forward, her hands trembling against the table. Her voice was soft, but steady in a way that surprised me. I know I can't erase what I did, she said. I know I broke something in you that may never heal. But if there's even a small chance, I will fight for it. Not with promises, not with excuses, with work. She took a shaky breath. I'll stay in therapy. I'll face the ugly parts of myself that let this happen. I'll sit with your anger, your silence, your mistrust, no matter how long it lasts. I won't run from it. I won't run from you. Her tears fell again, but her eyes didn't waver. This isn't just words, Michael. This is my vow. I'll rebuild what I destroyed, even if it takes the rest of my life. I sat back in my chair, her vow still echoing in my ears. For the first time since this began, I felt a sliver of control. Not forgiveness, not healing, just the ability to decide what came next. If we do this, I said slowly, choosing each word like it might set fire to the room, there have to be rules. Mercy without terms is just denial. Boundaries. Emily nodded quickly, her breath catching, as if afraid to even blink. Counseling, I said. Every week, no excuses. We sit in that room together, and you face everything you tried to hide. She swallowed hard but whispered, yes. Check-ins, I continued. Where you are, who you're with, total honesty, no more secrets, not one. Her eyes brimmed, but she nodded again. And if you cross a line again, I paused, my jaw tightening. There won't be a second chance. One betrayal was enough. She gripped the table like an oath. I understand. That evening, when the sun dipped low and the air turned cool, we stepped out onto the porch. The same boards where the video had caught her smiling at another man, the same light that had exposed everything. I leaned against the railing, my arms crossed, staring out at the yard. Emily stood beside me, hesitant, her hands clasped in front of her. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The silence carried ghosts. This feels different now, I said finally, my voice low. Like the air itself remembers. Emily's eyes dropped to the floorboards. I know, she whispered. Every time I step out here, I see it too. I hate myself for what I turned this place into. She reached for my hand, stopping halfway, her fingers trembling in the space between us. For once, I didn't pull away. Slowly, I let her close the gap, her grip tentative, fragile, but real. I kept my eyes on the horizon, the sky glowing orange as the sun slipped lower. My voice came out steady, but every word carried the weight of finality. This is your last chance, Emily. If it ever happens again, if I ever see even a hint of it, I'm gone. No conversations, no explanations, no videos. Gone. Her fingers tightened around mine, almost trembling. She turned to me, eyes wet but unwavering. It won't, she said firmly, her voice steadier than I expected. It will never happen again. I swear it. Oaths are lighter than air until you try to carry them. I studied her face, searching for hesitation, for a shadow of doubt. For once, I saw none. Just exhaustion, regret, and a determination that looked almost foreign on her. I nodded slowly, not in forgiveness, but in recognition. This was the line, the final boundary. The porch, once poisoned by betrayal, now carried a fragile vow, a chance hanging by the thinnest thread. Her birthday. Full house. I walk in holding As the last light faded, I sat there with Emily's hand in mine, fragile but real. For months, I thought leaving was the only strength I had left. But in that moment, I realized something else. Staying wasn't weakness. It wasn't blind forgiveness. It was a choice. A hard, painful choice to see if love could survive betrayal. To see if two broken people could build something new from the wreckage. I turned to her and spoke quietly, almost to myself. Staying isn't weakness. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. And I've chosen to try. One last time. Trying isn't the end. It's the next hard beginning. She squeezed my hand, tears spilling, whispering, "Thank you." I didn't answer. I just looked out at the dark yard, knowing the road ahead would be long and brutal. But for the first time, it wasn't over. If you've been through something like this, share your story in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next chapter.